Hello and welcome to the next follow-along lesson. In this lesson we are going to draw the eagle. We are just going to manually trace it off a picture which I downloaded from internet. In order to import it, I just click and drag it onto the canvas and I use the default settings. Let's zoom in. Let's move it to be a bit more centered and then zoom in. And I'm going to click on layers and I'm going to change the name of the layer to photo and I'm going to immediately lock it. Next I'm going to add a layer named the vector, and this is the layer where we will be drawing. We're not going to use a automated tracing algorithm because I would like to keep the lines, the resulting shapes relatively simple with relatively few nodes. So let's get started. I select the Bezier curves and I start drawing the beak. We just roughly follow the outline of the beak. It doesn't have to be precise. And I'm going to open the fill and stroke dialog, and I remove the stroke and I set the fill to be a nice yellow, very bright yellow. Now let's change these, edit these nodes to smoothen them. Something like that should be fine. The next thing we're going to do is draw the eyeball. We are just going to draw a circle. And we are going to color it a quite dark orange. And move it to the left. Up here. Let's press Ctrl D to duplicate it and then Ctrl and Shift and resize it to keep it centered and to keep the ratio of the width and the height equal. And let's set, constant, and let's set the color to black. Finally, we are going to draw the body. Well, not finally, but next we're going to draw the body of the bird, of the eagle. Let's start underneath the beak and just trace along. Now that we've traced the body, let's set the stroke to remove the stroke, and let's set the fill to be a nice brown color like this, and let's move it to the let's move it to the bottom layer, and let's modify these nodes to make the eagle much smoother. We also want to select these nodes. Click on smooth, make some minor adjustments to the feathers which don't seem quite right. Let's switch off these snap settings. We'll talk later about snap settings. Now let's add some shading, shall we? I'm going to add another layer called shading and highlighting. And I'm going to lock this vector layer, and I'm going to decrease the opacity of it so that we can have a look at where the shading and highlighting occurs on the picture. We see that some shading occurs here and highlighting occurs basically on the top. Let's start by drawing on the shading and highlighting section this shaded part. I'm going to just select this part and I'm going to set the vector layer back to fully opaque and I'm going to fill the shape with the same color as the body of the bird, and I'm going to also remove the stroke, and let's set the color just a little bit darker. And smooth this part. Now I'm going to actually move this shaded part to the layer below, to the vector layer. So I have to unlock it first, and I right click on the object and I click move to layer, and I click move and I lower it to be just below the beak. And I will also add a little bit of blur. 7% of blur should be fine. Next, let's fix this part. There's a part of blur, a little bit of shade on top of the wing. If I decrease the opacity, you will see what I mean. Let's change that. And set the color to be the same as the bird, and remove the stroke. You see we have a little ugly piece there, so let's adjust the shape a little bit. And that looks fine. And now let's just change add a little bit of highlighting on the top of the bird. Oh no, let's add a little bit of shading here first. We're going to just draw a random shape there. Give it the color which, this shape overlaps this part of the wing which is in the shade. To show you clearly, this part of the wing which sticks up is in the shade. So we're going to make it a bit darker. That's why we draw this shape. We select the shape as well as the main part of the bird, and we go to, we select the main part of the bird and we duplicate it, and then we select the duplicate as well as this shape, and we go to object, we go to path, intersection, and only the intersecting part remains, and let's set the color to be that of the bird, but a bit darker. Or actually, on second thought, let's set it to be equal to this shaded part. And let's remove the stroke. Now, let's draw the highlighting. So looking at the photo, I would judge my highlighting to be a bit like this. Let's smooth it out a bit. And let's make some adjustments. And let's set the color to be a bit lighter. And let's increase the blur to 7%. Let's make some minor adjustments, and let's zoom out to see the final effect. I think it looks quite reasonable. Of course, it's never perfect and you can always improve it, but I think for the effort that I've done, it actually looks quite good. So let's save it, or in fact let's hide the photo layer. And now let's save it. And I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you for watching. Bye.